G'day Year 12 and welcome to another YouTube lesson. Today we're looking at the last section of human resource management. We've taken a look at the role of human resource management. We've taken a look then at the influences of HR. Following that, we looked at the processes of HR. And then the second last part, which is the last part for every other business function, but for HR, we had the strategies of human resources. And for HR only, for some weird reason, they also have the effectiveness criteria. It's great to have, but I do think every other business function should have something similar. But you do what you can do. All right, now in terms of the effectiveness of human resource management, what's that mean? In a nutshell, it means how good or bad human resource management have been. And we've got a criteria to use to evaluate, and that's one of those directive terms, to evaluate to see if HR has been good, great, okay, bad, or super rubbish in terms of doing their job. So what are some of the indicators in this HR effectiveness criteria? We've got corporate culture, benchmarking key variables, changes in staff turnover, absenteeism and accidents, levels of disputation, and also worker satisfaction. Each of these are tools, they're indicators to be able to see whether, to be able to ascertain whether the business has been meeting the key objectives of HR or not. And when you evaluate how good or bad a business has been in terms of HR, this is the must. This is the criteria you have to use. Now, the first one we've got there is corporate culture. What is that? This relates to the values that the average worker has themselves and towards the business they work in. It's a good definition. And the definitions I want Band 6 kids to be using, which is lots of you guys, are from the textbook. So that when the HSC marker reads it, it's familiar to them. No point reinventing the wheel. If the culture is strong with sound values, then one can say the business has a good corporate culture. Okay? If there is negativity, if we have workers operating below the industry average, this gets into the benchmarking later on, and there are high levels of inappropriate activity, then one could say that the corporate culture for the business is poor. A good corporate culture suggests that there is an effective human resource management and effective employment relations. So that's something you want to meet. So the first thing to tick off is the vibe, the corporate culture. You know, are people professional? Are they there? Do they want to be there? And if they are, and it's a good place to be in where people are working professionally, as in our school is and our faculty for sure, then we have great corporate culture, and that's a positive for the business, and you can measure these things. Now, ways in which you measure these things is talking about benchmarking. Now, this refers to measuring a business against itself in previous years. It's one way to measure it, against itself from this year to last year to the year before, etc., etc., and also to compare against the industry average. So whatever measurement you're going to use, what's our school like compared to other schools? And we constantly do those things. Okay, and also another way to benchmark and to measure these key variables is to measure your business, school, whatever it may well be, against the best company. This is known as best practice. What are they doing compared to what you're doing? And you want best practice. And you can measure this in relation to absenteeism or accidents or worker satisfaction, etc., etc. If a business is the benchmark, the top of its industry, then it's said to be effective, very effective, in relation to meeting its human resource management objectives. If it's much, much poorer, and if it's getting worse from year to year, okay, then that's an issue. That's something that needs to be addressed. But it's a way to see how good or bad a business is doing. Now, the next syllabus dot point under this effectiveness criteria and indicators is changes in staff turnover. Now, staff turnover refers to the amount of workers that are staying at your business from one year to the next. Now, you're always, when you've got a big enough business, going to have people leaving. It's going to happen. It's just natural. i.e., if you've got a business with 1,000 workers, then you're going to have some staff turnover because, God forbid, someone's going to get ill. They're not going to be able to work there. That happens when you've got 1,000 or 10,000 or hundreds of thousands, as in the Department of Education. People are going to get old. Now look at me when you say that. People are going to get old. They're going to retire. So they're going to have that natural staff turnover anyhow. People are going to want to get promoted. And if there's not the opportunity at present in your business, they might go to a competitor. All right, so it's natural to have a little bit. And staff turnover is talking about people leaving the business. Problem with having staff turnover is you've invested a lot of energy, money, time to training staff. They've got good corporate knowledge, good corporate memory of your business. And when people leave the business and in mass amounts, that means all that goes, all that training, all that time, energy, corporate knowledge goes with them. All right, so it is a problem. Now, a small amount of turnover is okay and in fact probably good. You know, you've all had your classroom teacher who does the same thing all the time, who's been there for 1,000 years. All right, you'll be looking at me when you say those things. But you know what I mean. They become a little bit crusty, a bit stale. And that's the same with certain workers as well. All right, a little bit of change is good. We get new teachers coming in sometimes, and they bring with them fresh skills, fresh ideas, new enthusiasm, and it reinvigorates the staff that's there. Okay, so it's good to have a little bit of staff turnover, but you want as low as possible generally. Too high and it's bad. Now, the next dot point we have is absenteeism. Absenteeism is the average amount of days each worker has off due to illness. Now, it's a very good way to see how a business is going, but you do have to, again, compare against industry average, etc. Because in certain occupations, like I would think a doctor, they're constantly seeing sick people. So I'd think they'd have more days off absentee. And same with teachers, constant kids there, you know, especially primary school getting you sick and stuff. Then compared to, say, in a retail sector, you wouldn't think there'd be as many days needed for sickness, for people being absent from work. But it's an excellent indicator of how well a business is travelling. High levels of absenteeism suggest that the workers are not happy with their workplace. They're chucking sickies and not coming to work and probably aren't all that sick. Or, worse still, they might be sick because they're overly stressed and that's getting them run down. So regardless, high levels of absenteeism is not a good indicator of effective HR management. Low levels of absenteeism is what you're after. Now, the next syllabus dot point and next indicator we can use to ascertain how effective HR is travelling are accidents. Now, accidents refers to the amount of injuries and also deaths that occur in the workplace, God forbid. Now, like you would assume, high levels of accidents indicates bad working conditions. Low levels of accidents tend to indicate good HR management practices. Now, apart from the fact that it sucks if people get hurt or die on the job, you know, it's bad from a business point of view, not just a moral and social point of view. High levels of accidents, high workers' compensation needs to be paid out. Loss of, you know, credit within the, you know, in society and that influence. So it's bad from that perspective, and it is an effective measure. Low accidents, generally good HR effectiveness. Now, next one we look at here is levels of disputation. What's disputation? Disputes. Disputation refers to disputes, industrial action, workplace arguments, and so on. Things like strikes, etc. are examples thereof disputation, when the boss and the workers are not happy. Now, it's unproductive for workers to be fighting with each other and with their boss. It's not good for human resource management. And especially for big business, and all businesses, but it's a very good way to see how the business is traveling. If there's been lots of recent strikes, it's an indicator, an effective one too, of whether the business is doing well or not. Qantas comes to mind. Probably about 5 years ago now, thereabouts, depending on how long ago you're listening to this clip, you'll find that Qantas had a lot of strikes, and Alan Joyce even put in place a lockout so that the workers couldn't come into the actual business. That sort of stuff indicates things aren't quite right within the business. Low levels of disputation show that there's effective HR strategies in place. Now, the last dot point that we address, and the last way in which you can measure, evaluate the effectiveness of human resource management, is worker satisfaction. It's not a very tangible thing. It's hard to necessarily pin that down, but worker satisfaction refers to how much employees, workers, enjoy their workplace and the job they are required to perform. Okay, if workers in general have high levels of satisfaction, then they're going to be more productive. If they hate where they're coming to work, they're probably going to be nowhere near as productive. So an effective workplace is one that has high levels of worker satisfaction.